Today is August the 28th of 2019. I have to mention the year because sometimes it's a while. It's been a long time since we've done this, and not placing blame on anybody because everybody's busy. And I'm going to start reminding you, in which I thought we were going to try to do it quarterly maybe. And which there's some questions in here also about quarterly stuff that we'll talk about later. But today is a great day for a new class that was notified. Chief Driscoll just told me that they notified 20 individuals.
20,
Go ahead, I'll let you talk about it.
20 cadets and 6 alternates that will start November the 4th.
Looking forward to that.
Yeah, we need them. We were approved for a class that would start in the spring, and we just backed up and asked them to have a smaller class in the fall because we knew we would. If you have them in the spring, they're going to graduate after the fiscal period, and we knew that we would need them in the spring. So got them to make it 20.
So next group, how big and how when do we know? I mean,
The
rough
one
estimate.
after this one?
Yes. So these will graduate
April.
mid-April, I think.
These
We
graduate in April, and right now we won't have another class for this fiscal period. So the next class will probably be July or August of next year, but that still has to be approved. This one has been approved, but that one has not, it's a new fiscal period, so it won't be.
Wow, that one may be my last class.
Sad to hear that.
Me too. But we'll read some questions in here that may sum up
Answer
the
that?
reasons why.
Okay.
Okay, let's go straight to, there's a lot of questions. Like I said, it's been a long time, so there's a lot of questions. And these will remain anonymous unless you specifically said you did not want to remain anonymous, and then I'll read your name. But I think everybody just kind of didn't care or did not want it to be said who said it. Some of these repeat themselves, so you can whiz right through, but I do want to just read every question that was submitted so nobody seems left out. Anyway, number one of many. What is the status of get the ACs, heaters, brakes, fuel tank, gauges, foam eductors, etc. fixed? I assume they're talking about on the fire trucks. And I even looked at some questions from the last show we had, which was June of 2018, and these are some of the same issues still occurring on the trucks, the air conditioners.
I think probably the best answer that we have, which is the same answer that we've had all along, and it's the same one that we've told the mayor's office, is we don't have an inventory of reserve apparatus. And in talking to one of the assistant chiefs this morning, there were some brake line issues and compressor issues on the trucks that in order to take a truck out of service, we were going to have to take an engine out of service, we were going to have to put a ladder back in. And unfortunately, there's been some situations on the air conditioners where if we want to send it out to get it fixed, we don't have any reserves to put them in, or we only have one reserve. We've shared this with the mayor's office, and obviously next week we're supposed to get 3 more engines. We're in the process right now of doing an evaluation to get 5 more engines behind that. So we finally have
a
total of 8, aside from the ones that are coming. In addition, there'll be 2 more in between those. So we have 3 coming. There'll be 2 more that will hit in January, and then 5 more that will hit next summer.
Okay. What's the process of selecting where the new engines will go? We are in an older engine with lots of problems.
Yeah, I would agree, and I'll tell you this: Chief Mallory looks at a lot of different variables, and then once he has a pretty good idea about which ones those need to look at, he sits down with Chief Clark and the assistant chiefs to determine if the numbers that he has are really accurate. And it comes down to years that they've been in service, the number of miles that they have. Their maintenance records are really important. So if one truck has quite a bit fewer miles, but it's in the shop a lot, then it's going to be potentially on the blocks to either put it in reserve or send it out to surplus. So there's a lot of different variables that go into that. And I know that everybody thinks and feels like their truck should be the next one, and they all need to be the next one. And that's what we've communicated to the mayor's office. So that's the process, and it seems like it works. And if not, then we certainly want some input on that.
I'm going to trying to find one of the questions just because it was kind of on the same topic. A suggestion someone had written. This idea is concerning truck repairs. Once the email has been sent in, it's not really a question. It's just
Right.
a comment. Once the email has been sent in and the vehicle has been dropped off or picked up, there should be a work order established. This should be whether the vehicle is in for scheduled maintenance or a problem called in by the field. Once the vehicle's been returned to the field, it should be accompanied by a copy of the initial work order and a copy of the work performed done so the crew can check out all the work performed and make a response to the shop about quality of the work performed. The idea is not intended to be negative, but is as a quality check. This is no different than taking your personal vehicle to a mechanic and getting an invoice before and after the work has been completed. And I think I talked to him a little bit, this individual, and the issue was the truck goes in on A platoon, for example, comes back on C. They don't even know what has been done with the truck because there's nothing to read, nobody to ask. They just go and pick the truck up, put it back in service.
Yeah, it's a good question. And in fact, the union was just here. I visited with President Nance and some of his folks here about 3 weeks ago. So the goal is right now when a truck comes in, there's already a list established of things that have been reported. So if it's something minor that somebody writes in but it doesn't need to trade out the truck, that still goes in this list, a program that the EMD has. So when the truck comes in, even though it may be coming in for a PM or if it's coming in for something more serious, they'll try and fix the things that are safety issues or things that need to be fixed right now. But then the field still don't know that the stuff that they turned in, if it's ever even been recorded. So in visiting with Chief Mallory and EMD, they're going to try and make that program accessible to everyone. They're having trouble right now, though, as far as their servers, how they can get that out so everyone can access it and look at it without actually going in there and being able to change things. And I think that will be more helpful for people so that when they know that they've turned something in, that it is there. Then also when it comes back out, if it has 12 issues that need to be fixed, that at least the most serious 4 or 5 issues got fixed and they got sent back out. Now the ultimate goal would be when it comes in that we fix all 12. The problem is we don't have enough trucks that it can stay in the shop for an extra 3 or 4 days or 2 weeks to get everything fixed. And there's a determination made by Chief Mallory and EMD to fix the things that we need to fix and get it back out and put back in service.
I make a suggestion.
Please.
There's a simple program that I use a lot, and that's an Excel spreadsheet. And at my house, on my personal vehicles, I put the date, what was done, on an Excel spreadsheet. You could print that off and copy that to a PDF, and it couldn't be changed. And you could just simply keep track. Each truck has a tab, and here's the work that gets performed. But I know it's more sophisticated than that, the software that they have.
Well, it's only
programs
sophisticated
using it.
in the fact that the Chief Mallory has to be able to access it, and it also has to be able to be seen by Opie. It also has to be seen by the mechanic, and it also has to be seen by someone in parts, so that when parts are pulled off the shelf, it can also show that it's going to that truck. So there's several people who have to be able to go in there and access it on that side, but we still want to make it available to a boost where our folks can look at it and see what's been done.
I hope it does. I think that'll cause or solve the problems that he's addressing anyway. Okay, so back to this first individual's multiple questions. What is the process for selecting where the engines will go? We addressed that. What about the minimum manning of 4 to all the outlying stations that was passed from the tax? Go ahead. What about it?
Yeah, so originally when the public safety tax was put out there, the goal was to put 4 people on all the outlying companies. And so once that was passed, we sat down and looked at the opportunities that the most number of people can get on a scene at any given time. And so some of those outlying companies did get 4, some got 5, and then some were sent over to other trucks. And the reason that was done was only to get the most number of people to the scene quicker. So in some cases, if you were an outlying truck and you made very few runs. It didn't make a lot of sense to try and put 5 people in that truck because we weren't getting the best bang for our buck on that particular resource. So that's why some of them got 4 or 5, and then some of them were sent to other trucks.
How was 25 selected to relocate hazmat? It says.
25 was selected for a number of reasons. First of all, we needed the hazmat to be centrally located, but also have easy access to the highways. Now, when you look at that in conjunction to District 5 moving, then it obviously had an impact as well. But District 5 relocating because of ISO concerns and how that was viewed was the key factor. Once that was determined and that was going to happen, then it was put on the table about if we were to relocate hazmat, where would that be? And that's how 25 got selected, because of their access to the highway, or centrally located. We looked at the hot runs, which is the runs that they're making. They would be closer to the majority of their runs that they would make. We also looked at whether we should split up hazmat and have them at 2 different stations. There was a financial cost that was going to be involved in that we didn't think we could get through the city. So it was determined to put both those trucks there at 25s.
Shifting gears here. Nothing to do with trucks or stations. What about doing away with the EMT patch and replacing with the American flag? Have you ever heard about that or talked about that? Or
No, but I do know that we have talked about in the past about putting the American flag on the other shoulder for those in the fire department. The other side of that would be something we need to visit with Dr. Goodlow, because I know that there are some concerns about people who are on the scene about their qualifications, whether they're an EMT or they're B or a paramedic. So we would have to make sure that there's not something that we would violate by not having that patch on their shoulder. But I'm not opposed to either way, or even just adding the patch to the other side.
I know this individual I talked with also said if there's legalities or reasons we need to identify ourselves, there are pins also that we can put on our uniforms that identify as if you can read a one font.
Yeah, and I don't know
pin.
I don't know that we would really even have a problem here in Tulsa, because I think a lot of our people know that IMSA crews pretty well. I just want to make sure that there's not something, some standard that's set out there that says you have to identify yourself with that patch. I don't know if there is, but we can check into it and see.
Can the fire chief start back? That's you.
Okay.
Can the fire chief start back with his weekly email updates? They were very useful to keep us updated.
Yes. Yes, those general information I think is what they're referring to. We didn't send them out weekly, but we tried to send them out about every 6 weeks. Between this class we just hired, we were doing interviews every day in August, and then I took off some in July. But yeah, we can certainly pick those back up. In addition to kicking this back off, Crusher's Corner, also the management skills is something that's going to get scheduled here pretty quick.
I've had several calls on that.
Yeah.
And the city just came out with, for those concerned or that like to do the city classes, there's several that are beneficial, I think, and the chief training, of course, will be the determining factor, but we've used them in the past. There was just an email sent out by the city of Tulsa that lists a fall schedule, and I've sent that out to a couple individuals asking questions, but it's kind of a first come, first serve for any of those courses, and the city employees use them. Actually, they not saying they get first pick. It is first come, first serve. If you guys want those courses and get in quick, you are allowed. But the city employees, the civilians, use those for advancement in promotions.
Right.
I guess they have to have so many courses they get credits for those. So anyway, if you do enroll in those, I'd just like to say, if for some reason you can't make it, let me know, because usually those are wait listed. There's others waiting to get in, especially those that need the courses for advancement, and I need to withdraw you from those classes. So if you can't make it, let me know in advance, and instead of just not showing up for the class. Sorry, taking an opportunity.
That's okay.
This is,
At some point you need to take the
Yes.
opportunity to tell everybody how you're doing.
I'm doing great. Here I am.
You're
Yay.
back.
I'm back. I have magic shoes now, and a fake toe in my shoe. I have a prosthetic. Is what I go around telling people. My wife tells me to be sure and mention that is my toe. It is my prosthetic.
We're glad you're back.
I'm glad to be back. Just a little bit longer. One or two more of these cadet classes will be about all I can take. I think that's that. There was one in here I really wanted to get. We'll liven things up with this one if I can find it.
I know that's important to you, so let's get it out there.
It is. And because in his email, he said, I want you to read this exactly how I've written it to the fire chief. So I'm going to do that. It shouldn't be too controversial, but he says, so maybe I better read a little bit of it in advance. I'm sure you will be, or have been asked this question, but I'm going to ask it again. It's a two-part question that needs to be asked in order, please. Also, please, great big letters, use the exact wording below when asking Driscoll the two questions. And he puts it in quotes. Ray, given the recent decision by the City Council regarding the use of CBD oil/marijuana, what is the administration's plan to either keep the current zero tolerance policy or move forward with allowing the use of medical marijuana?
So the zero tolerance is going to stand. That's the current policy, and we haven't had any reason that we think we need to change the current policy. I will say some procedural things that have happened recently have had some concerns within the fire department that I think we've now addressed those, and I feel comfortable with where they're at now. But there still will be a zero tolerance policy, just like there is today.
Furthermore, given the recent epidemic in Oklahoma involving opioids, and with the overall number of TFD members currently being prescribed opioids by Dr. Berry, do you think it's time to get on board with the majority of the country in allowing the use of medical marijuana, CBD oil, to treat chronic pain and all other medical conditions that it is prescribed to treat? I guess that's a separate question.
Well, it is a separate question. I think it's a good question, but I think one of the things that people are having trouble grasping is this is really a medical condition. And so we have to seek advice from either city medical or whatever medical professionals there are. But what we don't need is a fire chief or someone in the administration trying to decide whether we're going to allow these types of things. In the end, whether it's alcohol or marijuana or whatever the issue may be, people cannot come to work or be at work if they're under the influence of anything.
Let me stop you there, because I didn't read his last sentence was, I understand not being high while on duty is an absolute must, but it is still possible to get healing effects from this plant without the THC.
You know, for the stories of things that I've researched on my own recently, I believe that to be the case. However, I'm not going to be the one that's going to make the determination about whether somebody is, how it's affecting them psychologically. I think there's enough medical professionals out there who can educate us on what is the right thing to do. And we're going to do the right thing. You've got to keep in mind that we've got citizens out there who trust the fire department, and what we don't need to be doing is allowing people to be, and this is the way before any of this came up, this is the way it's been for years. We don't need people to have mind-altering things and be driving apparatus or be on a fire truck. So that part's not changed, but if we get to a point where we need to look at some things, we're certainly going to look at the medical field and rely upon them to give us good advice about what is mind-altering from one person to the next and at what level.
Are we also looking at other departments or policies in other departments around the country?
Absolutely.
I know others have changed some things. But
They have. And we even looked at this when it was passed and took our policy to city legal and to the mayor's office and said, look at our policy. Do we need to make some changes? Do we need to amend anything? And they said, your current policy is good. Now, I think the policy is good. I think we just have to be very careful procedurally how we enforce the policy. And that's what's raised some concerns here recently. But again, I feel like those have been dealt with.
here's the next one. My question is regarding medical marijuana. It's amazing how many people on this job are asking questions. And I even said that you would probably think these all came from me. They didn't. And I didn't even encourage them. They just came to me. This one says, my first question is, how can a new policy against a medically prescribed drug be justified as against fire department policy if prescribed to a member? Which, to me, this brings up what you were talking about. You want to allow the medical field or world to dictate what we do and how we do it. Well, they are prescribing marijuana for medical use. The best answer I can get is we fall under the DOT. That's what this person's been given, which is indeed covered in the AOP. But it states, if the member, this is a quote, if the member is required to carry a CDL, which most of us are not. There are numerous other narcotics and controlled drugs prescribed to members that are acceptable for use on and off the job that are in themselves dangerous and much more addictive. For example, opioids, amphetamines, alcohol, and sleeping aids like Ambien. My second question is, eventually, when marijuana becomes legal recreationally, will it then be treated like our policy on alcohol use, or still be against policy? If legal and used off the job like alcohol, how would TFD policy be able to dictate what you can and cannot do off the clock in the privacy of your own home? If used responsibly, whether prescribed or recreational, marijuana is proven to be much safer to the user and to the people the user interacts with than any of the above listed drugs while being used for the same reasons.
So there's a lot of questions and comments in there, and again, I'll go back to when you talk about the recreational side. I don't know that it'd be appropriate to talk about what we're going to do if that were to pass. Let's see what happens if it passes, then we'll deal with some of those issues. But in the end, DOT or whatever the issue is, you cannot be on the job and be on duty in any type of a mind-altering drug, whether it's prescribed to you or not. Now, one of the things that we mentioned in there was Ambien, and it's a conversation that I've had with Dr. Berry, is that we have some people who have taken Ambien off duty. I can't be privy to who those people are, and I can't be privy to have conversations with them. That's between them and their doctors. So I've just asked that he communicates with them, that if they're taking those or any other type of drug that's prescribed to them, he is to advise them about when they can and cannot take them. So whether it's alcohol, marijuana, whatever that may be, we have a huge trust with the citizens, and we can't betray that trust by being on mind-altering drugs while on duty. We just can't do it.
Back up in the first part of this, it says fire department policy prescribing. Best answer is we fall under the DOT, and the DOT says if the member is required to carry a CDL, all of those rules apply. Are we still under the DOT guidelines if we're not required to carry CDL? Here's the simple question.
Well, but I think it's a simple answer. It's immaterial to me whether it's CDL or not. You can't be on the job. You can't even be at a fire and have been taken, prescribed or not.
Well, and this is where we'll have some discussion.
I see that.
And I don't know if you, and it's irrelevant whether you've ever smoked marijuana in your life or not, but I don't think we're discussing, or I think everybody's on the same page about being on the job under the influence.
Right.
There's nobody thinks that's what we're looking for.
Right.
What they're discussing is it has now become a legal prescribed drug, and if it's in my system, I'm guilty. And I could have been using it as prescribed over the weekend or on a 3-week vacation, whatever the case is. And I don't think anybody will deny, if you stop using it for several days, you're not under the influence when you come back to work. But yet, the testing that we use still shows it in your system, and you are guilty, even though you have a prescription. That's the issue I think that our members are looking at. They're concerned that they can have a prescription that was legally given to them. They can legally take the drug for whatever reason, while they're off duty, and still risk losing their job or being disciplined.
Right.
Because it shows up in the system. And I guess there's no other means that I know of. Someone told me recently that there are tests for currently under the influence, similar to alcohol,
Right.
that says you got enough in your system, you're still high.
Right.
So I think that's the concern.
Yeah, I think it's a valid concern, and what I want people to understand is that we're certainly not on a witch hunt to try and catch people to do anything like that. And if people are doing this stuff because they've got injuries, they've got to take that up with the city physician, because he's the one that's going to approve these things. I don't know of anybody on the fire department who has the expertise to be able to go in to say whether 15 nanograms is too much or too high. In many states, it's 5. It's a third of what we're at. I don't know if it's too high or too low, but that's what's out there in Oklahoma, and that's what the city physician follows. So whether it's the nanograms on some marijuana use, or if it's 0.04 in alcohol for the fire department that we currently have, there was some medical advice that was put into those policies to make them in effect. And I'm not going to allow us to be put in a position where we're going to make that determination out on the fire truck whether somebody's under the influence or not, prescribed or not. I think that needs to come from the medical field to tell us. And so if someone has a condition and they go to the city physician and they have some understanding or at least agreement where they can perform their job based upon the conversation they have with the city doctor, we're going to look at that and abide by that. But same on the opposite side. If they think, the city physician thinks that it's something that's going to alter their decision making, we're going to look at that also.
So, but we can safely say, though, that things are being looked at. We're not just sitting here. Does the department, you being the leader of the department, understand that we're in a changing world right now with this subject? And are we looking at changes or policies, or are we just ignoring it and dealing with it on a case-by-case basis?
No, we're
Being
not.
proactive.
I feel like we are proactive, and that's why we went out and took our policy and had someone else look at it and tell us, is this a good policy? Not a good policy to catch people. Is this a good policy to try and identify when there are potential issues? And part of what was part of the question that you asked about, you said something to the effect of
Being
we're proactive.
Being proactive. Are we actually moving forward with looking at new policies or developing some type of... what I think the job is concerned with, and what I'm concerned with, is, we've even got a history, and I don't want to bring it up, but we've got a history of suicides on this job.
Right.
And not necessarily suicides, but overdoses and issues. We've got members right now, and you and I know we're not naive enough to think that we don't have members that are addicted to prescribed medications right now on this
Right.
job. And their concern is there's other alternatives now. And are we going to be proactive and move forward at looking at these other alternatives? Or are we just going to keep it as by golly, you can't use it, and that's the end of the conversation?
No, in fact, when this came up recently, I went and talked to my private physician about what his opinion was on some of this stuff, and I think we are being very proactive. I think one of the questions that you had raised that I wanted to address was, are we just going to accept what's out there and move on as far as the city physician's opinion? And the answer to that is no. And so just because the city physician says this is what needs to happen, this person needs to be terminated, we're just not going to immediately move to that. We need to find out why this person got to where they're at, how much help were they ever given, and did they follow a proper process to inform them about things that they were doing. We don't want to go out there, as I said earlier, and have a witch hunt and try and catch people. We want to identify if there's a problem, if there's something that's working for them in this arena. Is that something that they can use that will be not addictive to them and would be better for them in the end? And if there is, let's get them some time off so that they can get there and get healed. But more importantly, like you said, not to get to a point where someone gets addicted to something and then they're thinking about suicide and other things. None of us will benefit from that. So we want to be very proactive and understanding to what our members need and what they want that will make them feel better in the end. I can't be involved in those conversations until Dr. Berry and I sit down and we talk.
Thanks, we're back. We kind of cut off in the middle of that, but we were in hot topic discussion over things. But we're going to move on. This says good morning, and it's not. It's afternoon. Good afternoon. The masses would like to inquire on the current response model to be discussed on Crusher's Corner. Okay. Why at two company stations do the engines get dispatched to the following when both trucks are in service and in quarters? For example, gas odors in the house. Why is this not an automatic dispatch due to the new 4 gas meters located on the ladders and ventilation equipment on the apparatus? Also to include the following: business fire alarms, residential fire alarms, and all other non-emergency runs, water flow, smoke in the area. Is this a dispatching issue due to our current response model? If not, why is this getting left to the discretion of the ladder apparatus ride-out guy, which tends to be very consistent? Concerns. I don't know what this question is saying. Hope you're following along. Certain responses, as listed above, could benefit the initial response of a ladder at multi-company stations. In turn, would result in a better service to our community and use of resources. Also, a more rounded workload would greatly increase morale within multi-company stations and assisting in not starting a complacency effect due to lack of run volume. I've whited out the names on these, so don't worry, but I'm going to let the fire chief take a look at that because I haven't maybe read it properly with the
I'll tell you what I think I'm hearing is that two company stations, why aren't they sharing the load on particular types of alarms or runs? And I think some of that's occurring now, but if not, there's always been a process in the EOG if you want to change things, that you fill out a recommendation to change things in the EOG. Aside from that, if there are things that need to be changed, send it up the chain of command so that it gets to the assistant chiefs and we can have these discussions and make these changes. If it should be occurring but it's not, we need to know that. But if it's something that's not even in the policy that we need to change, we need to know that also. So I'll take this and do a little bit of checking with field operations and see if this is what's occurring. If it is, if we need to change the policy.
Awesome. Thank you. It's been brought up around the coffee table. This is my favorite. Boy, there's a lot happens around the coffee table. About firefighters and their RFEO, relief drivers. Why are we not teaching the basic relief driver info during downtime in the 5.5 month academy? Well, let me tell you something, mister. No, I'm kidding. This may be a question for the chief of training. Also, why are we pushing people through the test who really aren't ready to be driving, let alone pumping? It's clear that not everyone needs their RFEO, but it's being pushed by other officers and field members to get the firefighter pay or another RFEO at the station, but just at the station by just pushing them through the test.
I think I know what they're asking, and I don't know. I don't know that that's occurring, but obviously it is. If they have this opinion that they think that people are being pushed to get their relief driver, and I think what they're even saying is some people aren't even qualified to be relief drivers. It's that if that's occurring, it shouldn't be occurring. We don't need people out there driving who either don't want to or are not qualified. But you know, we try to push some of these responsibilities down to the captain level because they're the ones who they need to satisfy, and the captains are the ones who should be making those decisions. So if that decision should lie elsewhere, we need to have that discussion. But to me, it should be up to the captain. Either that person can or they cannot drive, whether they want them to drive or not. I think we still need to leave those decisions up to the captains. And I've not heard of any of these situations that was just described here. But I trust the captains out there are making determinations whether someone needs to drive or not and have their relief driver or not.
I'd like to address this for just a moment.
Please.
This may not be the views of this fire department or of the training division that I am assigned to. However, they are my views and comments. we have the administrative chief on hand just in case. I don't know. For one thing, these talks around the coffee table, and I appreciate those. I enjoyed them when I was on the fire company, and a lot of problems are addressed and solved internally, especially at that station. Things get resolved at that coffee table. The problem I've since learned, since I became more of an administrative type position, is that coffee table talk tends to make you think that is a job-wide issue, when it's in reality that station's issue, or that district's, or that shift's issue. And I can tell you, I've seen, when I was doing a lot of relief drivers, you probably don't remember, but I did do a lot of relief driver testing in the day, and nothing more frustrating than people coming out there that were not prepared, and the captain or that company wanting the training officer to be the bully and fail that individual, and them knowing good and well they weren't prepared or weren't ready. If you scheduled a relief driver and your person cannot drive the truck, cannot pump the truck, don't bring them out there. Call and reschedule it and do more practice. We can give all the classes in the world, we can give all of the training we can, and it does not substitute for you taking your company and going out and practicing. We can't, there's not enough hours in the day for us to take every relief driver and spend the time needed to become proficient at that job. They've got to go out and practice in the field. They've got to drive the truck. And we can put them through an obstacle course, and we can test them on every evolution on that truck. And all it says is that they passed on that day. They were efficient enough to pass the test for that instructor on that day. That does not mean they're good at it. That doesn't mean they'll be able to perform under pressure of a real fire. That's, to me, is up to the captain and that crew to prove for that individual.
I couldn't agree more. It's the captain's truck to make that thing run efficiently, and he knows his folks better than anybody else, and I'm with you. They shouldn't be scheduling anything to come to the training center until that captain is convinced they're ready.
And that paperwork has a place on it for all those involved to sign, and that's the company officer as well when he's out there. You're signing off on that individual saying what you witnessed them perform was sufficient to do the job at that day on that test. So your signature is as important or more important than that training officer signing off on those individuals. So anyway, that was my rant, defending the training division. And as far as in the 5.5 month academy, we've got plenty on their plate. That's not the time to start their relief driver training while they're in the academy. We've got basic firefighting skills. And it's as I've said, a one-room schoolhouse, and it's just the nature of the beast. We've got first graders there, and we've got 12th graders there. And it's sad but true. There are some that, sure, we could move straight in. We could spend a couple of weeks with Tulsa specific and then go into relief driver. But we've got others that don't know what a screwdriver is, and that's not a requirement to be hired. So we have to teach them those basic skills. Thanks for listening. Are we out of time yet? Here we go. Here you go, Chief Morgan. You'll like this question. Maybe you can help us. Our military members have far too long been left on the back burner in regards to recognition and credit for their service. I can't believe it says this. Why come members that have served in the military do not receive some sort of military stipend, just as members that have a college degree receive a college stipend? While some were in college, others were serving their country. I think we are sending the message as if a college degree is valued more than military service, when a large percent are not even working in the field of their degree or has anything to do with the fire service. Members that have served should receive 5 points towards promotion and a monetary stipend, just as those with a college degree. Please don't say, let's see what the union thinks. It has been addressed and nothing has been done. Let's stop saying we respect and honor our veterans by giving them a service pin and a letter from the mayor. We deserve much more than that. Then there's 2 more questions. We'll take these one at a time.
Yeah,
What's
let's
your
take them
comments
one
on
at a
that?
time. Well, I couldn't agree more that they do deserve some recognition, and I apologize that they don't want to hear. Let's hear what the union thinks on this issue. But when it comes to, I think they talked about points on an exam or a stipend. The fire chief doesn't have the authority to issue stipends. I can't do that. It has to go through negotiations. If I tried to do that, it would be declined by HR. So it has to go through negotiations, and I'm not opposed to that. And then the other part is going to be when it comes to putting it as far as points. I think that's going to involve the personnel committee. So whatever rank this person is, I would strongly suggest that they take it up with their representative on the personnel committee, and we look at them getting points and having that discussion.
I think, to me, it was a lot said, but that was, to me, the question is, would you support
I'd
any
support
all of
both,
that?
yes.
I think you did say
Yeah.
Number 2, understanding that our goal is to keep stations bunker gear free, mainly to cut down on carcinogens and other cancer-causing agents. Does this include the wildland gear that we received? I guess the question is, are we allowed to wear or keep our wildland gear by our beds, since most members usually wear theirs at night on medicals or other non-fire related calls?
No, I do not think they should keep them by their beds for the same reason that they just talked about. The carcinogens are in that gear, just as probably not as much as their PPEs, but it still has potential to be in there where you track something in. So no, I don't think they should be in the bunker.
You heard it here. What do we need to do to get our PSAs about smoke detectors, explaining what citizens need to do when they see emergency vehicles, who to contact, and how in regards to being a firefighter, and how fire stations are considered a safe place? I guess he's listing several issues. These are things that are constantly being asked and repeated by citizens, and more importantly, we have far too many near-miss incidents by citizens daily from not knowing what to do when emergency vehicles approach on the street and highways. So what about some public service?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, and it's one of the things we're focusing on at the fair this year is to try and put more things out there. We're going to partner with TPD this year at the fair. We're going to share a booth with them talking about texting and driving. But in addition to that, we'll have some other things in our booth that talks to people about, they'll have actual video showing fire trucks going down the street and people not pulling over. So we're trying to make some awareness in that already right now. And I think Andy Little's doing a very good job of trying to do some of that, but he's only one person. And I think we'll continue to push some of those PSAs out there to do some of that. He works right now with all the television stations and the radio stations. From time to time, they'll have a little bit of free spots here and there, and he works with them to put in PSAs. You never know if they're going to come in or not, because if somebody else comes in and buys that spot, they don't show it. But there's still, we have a lot out there that just never get aired. And then when it comes to the funding of trying to get it someplace to air those, it's difficult because it requires money. But I don't disagree that there's more we need to try and do with PSAs.
Do we have a plan in the near future of getting, this person didn't use the big letters like I like. Do we have a plan for the near future of getting a more reliable network on the apparatus? Hopefully it is a priority to also get a working GPS system as well. Having this would be beneficial for the officer so he can focus on other tasks besides trying to read a map book. I understand we have used the map book system for years, but the job itself has changed over the past few decades. Hopefully the system we use will do the same.
Yeah, we're working to get a new system now. I know Chief Teeter, we've inquired about using some tablets and some iPads, and we purchased some of those and put them out in a few trucks to test them and see. But the network is really what causes the issue. We tried Rocket. We had promises that Rocket was the next best thing. Departments we talked to that had a lot of success with it. But in the end, we started having issues with that. So now we're trying to move on to the next best thing and to try and get better networking. It was decided we had to make a decision. Do we want GPS for the trucks, or do we want them to have connectivity? Obviously, connectivity is more important. And so the current system that we're under had to give up some of that GPS stuff. And so it's our intent now to try and find a company who can give us both. And right now, what they tell you is one thing, and what they sell you is something completely different. So we're just trying to find out who can give us the proper product and that it makes sure they will perform for us. But we're having trouble finding that. We're not alone in this area. Many departments are having the same issue.
I think it's frustrating because we see the leaps and bounds technology is taking, but technology's not cheap either. So
Well, and the technology's there.
right,
Trying to get the fire department to that technology means that we have to go through IT and many other City of Tulsa things that really hinder being proactive. And it's very frustrating when you're in these positions. And I hear people on the trucks, and we went to this situation where I would listen to the radio and they would dispatch a truck that typically wouldn't go somewhere because the GPS would show that they do. We've had to drop that to try and have better connectivity. We should have both. We're good enough. We should have both. And it is frustrating for me to hear some of that and hear, like in this person's email, their frustration that we should be doing better than what we are, and we should, and we'll continue to push and fight. Keep in mind, there was only just a few years ago we had no one from IT that worked in the fire department, and now we've got Jill, and she's doing everything she can. But we still have some bureaucratic struggles within the city about IT.
it's frustrating. I know when our personal devices do a better job than what we've got.
Yeah.
Seems to be available. We've got data connections that never lose. You never become disconnected, and you've got GPS down to within 20 feet.
Yes,
So
I agree.
it's pretty obvious the technology's simple and out there, but like you say, getting it to the fire department, I guess, is another issue.
Well, there's a big difference just in the public sector and the private sector.
Right. Please ask, why does management feel the need to move brothers and in-laws out of the same district when there is no conflict? Why not let the assistant chiefs and district chiefs manage their subordinates? We have first cousins working at the same station at the same district, but that doesn't seem to be an issue. I haven't heard of one person who agrees with some of these moves. If the reason is management of a relative, then that can be handled easily by the assistant chiefs and district chiefs. Seems we are making an issue of something that has never been an issue before on TFD. I assume they're speaking of some certain issue that I don't know, maybe you do.
Well, I can tell you this, when they say that it has never been an issue, that's not accurate. There have been a few issues in the past, none that I could think of recently, but there have been some issues in the past where family members were in the same district, close family members, and we want to try and avoid that for a lot of the various reasons that you could think of, whether assignments on the fire ground, special treatment when they're offered for vacation, or if they're flexing city shifts, whatever that may be. The best course of action is just don't have them in the same district if it can be avoided. I think we're a big enough department that it can be avoided. I will tell you, I have never instructed anyone to move someone because they're a family member. It is handled by the assistant chiefs and the district chiefs, and so even though this particular email says we should let them handle it, that's where the transfers are coming from. So they are handling it, and we are letting them handle that. They handle the day-to-day business on things, and I can't even think of a transfer that we've declined that the assistant chiefs or district chiefs have put forward. So they are handling it, but there have been some issues in the past, and I don't want to step back and say, well, because there's not issues, let's do nothing. I don't think that's the right approach. I think there should be a proactive approach to ensure that nothing will come up, because there have been some issues in the past, none major and not a lot, but we should be proactive and not reactive in something like this.
Let me ask a question, and it's really not, kind of is, but isn't related to this. So, and I had an experience with this one time where my supervisor was telling me that this new policy or this, whatever the situation is, this came from above. It's not me. This is the supervisor talking. It's not my concern. This is coming from higher up. What do I do as someone lower on the totem pole if I want to check on that, or I don't believe that story? I don't believe that it's an issue from above. In other words, they're placing the blame up.
Right.
How do I verify that? Or, no, I mean, you just said on the show that you've never personally said anything. You're letting the assistant chiefs and district chiefs handle that.
Right.
I think this individual in particular was told that it was coming from higher up.
First of all, I can tell you on the supervisor you referred to, which I have no idea who that was. Any supervisor that says this isn't me, it's coming from above, is a poor supervisor.
Right.
they should understand what the policies say and just ask the member to abide by the policy. So, in your question, what do I do as a member? First, I think you go seek out the policy and understand it and make sure you understand it. And if you can't find it, have your supervisor help you find it and have a good understanding about what the policy means and how it pertains to you. I think everybody should do that anyway if there's something that is going to affect them that they don't understand.
This is some of the times and some of the issues, not this one in particular, but there are issues that I did see value in back in the old days, the headroom show, as we called it, where we took live phone calls,
Right.
where people were actually able to address the fire chief
Right.
on issues. What is your policy if someone has questions like this or wants to talk about it? Can he come to you and talk to you?
Absolutely. You know, Crusher, and this is one of the things that we've seen. I think I see it more recently after the last couple of years where we do more of this, and then we also have the general information come out. We have the management skills that come out. I think we feel more comfortable talking to one another about these issues. I have people come in my office every week and talk about issues just like this, and we talk about them, and they give me their perspective. People come in and talk about their trucks, issues they're having with their trucks. That's what they should do, but I don't expect them to have to come down here and do that. If they want to email me, phone call me, let me know what's going on, something that they're concerned about. They really should just come and do it. Don't be worried about that you're having a discussion with the fire chief or somebody's going to see you down here and think something's going on. This is all of our department, and everybody has a different perspective from where they're at, whether it's the fire chief or a private. And if they see things going on that they know is not proper or they don't understand, they need to come down here if they're not getting the answers that they need to somewhere within their chain of command, because we don't need people being very concerned or agitated by something that's going on. Let's talk about it, put it on the table, and see if we can resolve it.
I like that answer because a lot of these questions, I think, like I said, the fear of they like this venue because they can send me the questions and I ask you the question, and I feel sorry for those that don't feel they can send you the email directly with some of these questions. And if you want, come by my office and send it from my computer. I don't care. And don't want to sign your name to it. I assume that would be fine with you if they're asking questions, legitimate questions, and have exhausted the avenues.
I'll tell you now that you were kind of to that point. There's a reason that we ask you to head what we're doing here, because people trust you and they feel like you won't pull any punches and you ask the tough questions. And that's also why we wanted you to do it, because you would ask anything. The only part about this process I'm concerned about is when people don't put their name on there. It makes me feel like if they don't put their name, that there may be some retribution that will come back on them. And that's not the goal of this. The goal of this is to inform people. I would rather they send me an email or put their name on there. And if I don't answer their question, we don't know that all these people are going to watch this show. And if they don't, they never got their question answered. I would like to see these things, get these things with their name on. Let me call up at the station or go visit with them and say, hey, did you hear the response, and did that make any sense to you?
I think people do fear retributions, and the problem is, if I send a question in and I put my name to it, and the way this job has memory like an elephant, and 2 years from now I get transferred, it's because I asked the freaking fire chief that question 2 years ago about why the air conditioner wasn't fixed on our truck. So now I got transferred. I think that's the fear. Retribution is a big fear for everybody.
And I hate that. I would rather people feel comfortable enough that they could ask the question, and if they feel like they need to go outside the chain of command and ask me. And I've told people this for years. If you have a particular issue on the fire department that's safety related, you need to go through your chain of command. If you don't get the result that you want, that you think is reasonable, you need to bring it to me, because we're going to find out what's going on. And we've had a few of those occur, and we got them fixed. But I hope we don't get to that point. But even if it's just a very generic question, please stop by here sometime and come in the office and visit with me, and let's talk about what's going on. We had a couple last week that did that very thing. And once I told them the information that I think made it more clear to them about what was going on, they understood. And I like it when we can clear the air for things and people not think that something else is going on.
Did that happen more often when the training branch was out here? When we had companies that were coming out here for training, did you have more visits in your office, or, guys are out here anyway, so they stop by?
Well,
maybe it overwhelms you too. I don't know.
No, because when the training staff left here, that's when we occupied here. So
Okay,
we weren't here at the
that's
same
why I
time.
couldn't really remember.
Yeah, but we have seen a huge increase in people stopping by the offices here because now we're here rather than being at OTC.
I can see.
But I do see the more of these management skills that we have, the more of these crusher corners that we have, and things that we do. It seems to make people feel more comfortable that they can come and ask a question, however difficult it may be. And that's what I want them to be able to do. Don't be concerned about asking the question. And I've been there. When I was a private and had an issue with Chief Baker, I took it to his office and was scared to death. But it was what I thought was the right thing to do at the time. And I just want people to feel more comfortable about that and come down anytime that they need to visit.
I think if you wear like Hawaiian shirts, funny hats, we'd feel more comfortable.
Well, I'll see if I can borrow some of your wardrobe
Okay,
and
yeah.
take care of that.
Yeah, some of my colorful. All right, here we go. The last question of the day, of the evening as it is now. Anonymous asks, how come some of our fire trucks don't have functioning air conditioners? Here we go again. If it's due to backlog at the city repair facility, there are shops in the local area that could easily repair these trucks and return them quicker than our city repair facility normally returns them. During my short tenure, this appears to be an annual problem. Are there any plans for a long-term solution to remedy this reoccurring problem? Summer in Tulsa is hot and will be for years to come. Signed, Sweaty Stinky Firefighter.
It's
I
a
think
valid
we've already
point,
addressed it.
and you know we have already addressed it, and we talked about the biggest issue that we have is the inventory of trucks. We just don't have enough trucks, and to take trucks out of service to fix the air conditioner, we don't have another truck to put them in, or we only have one at the time. And until we increase our inventory, we have pushed this to the mayor's office and told them several times, here's where we've got to get on the inventory of trucks. Now we knew we had some money last year, this year, next year coming up. That's why we really pushed with this vote that's going to come up this November on the next bond issue about the amount of money that we needed for trucks that we'll have in the future, because of some bond issues in the past that didn't allow the fire department or other departments to even have any capital funds. That's where we got behind, and we knew that we would, and we tried to foster and let the mayor's office know at the time what this could potentially do, and it's happened. So I think once we start buying more trucks, getting a better inventory for the reserves, then we can get ahead of this issue. Now, when they talk about that there are some private companies out there, there are some companies here in town, but there's only two that I believe that Chief Mallory has confidence in, that when you take the truck there, they will get fixed. One of those companies, you have to get in line. You have to get your truck in line, and your truck may sit in line for 2 to 3 weeks before it ever gets looked at. We made the determination that a truck sitting there for 2 or 3 weeks is going to be better served here to put it in service rather than putting someone in a reserve apparatus for 2 or 3 weeks, only then to have your truck worked on and come back from that particular company. So there's a lot of things that surround this, but for the most part, our inventory is too low. It's never been this low before, and we've got to get some new trucks in. And as I mentioned at the beginning, there will be three that will arrive next week, 2 more that will arrive in January, and then 5 more that will get here next summer.
Perfect. That's all the questions I have. If anybody has any other questions, you can send them to me, and I'll still get them. You don't have to wait for the show. I'll get them to the fire chief, and we'll get you an answer. Or, as he said, you know, if you've reviewed policies and exhausted your resources for getting an answer to questions, send you an email.
Still send me an email, or if they just happen to come through headquarters and they want to stop by and ask a question, you don't need to make sure you get permission through the chain of command. Come by and ask the question. Let's visit.
Awesome. Thanks for watching, and we'll look forward to the next time. Hopefully we'll do it a little quicker, and see you then. Thanks for joining us. Cut!